Oh, Chris Andrews, yes. Yeah. I left my phone in the car. I'll get you the information.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I saw you were on the call,
Yeah,
so,
I'm trying to get my 2 hours.
okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's 6:01. I know people are still finding their seats, and that is perfectly fine. I would like to call this regular meeting of the Lansing School District Board of Education to order. Will everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dr. Boddy? Dr. Burrows? Please absent. Mrs. Hodgen? Mrs. Lawrence?
Here.
Mrs. Lilgy?
Here.
Mr. Lopez? Okay, Mrs. Moore?
Present.
Dr. Rodriguez? Mrs. Willis? Quorum is present.
Thank you very much. And I know Dr. Burrows and Dr. Boddy have both sent their regrets this evening, although Dr. Burrows is enjoying some weather that is a far cry from what we're experiencing in Michigan right now. So I don't think he really regrets too much where he is. Any additions to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to public comment on agenda items. I don't think we have any.
I don't know if they're.
These are non-agenda. Okay. We'll move right along then to presentations. Our first presentation is on a bilingual education update. And I know our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Keck, will be joining us. Ben, do you want to say anything first?
I'm very happy to have Deputy Superintendent Sergio Keck present this wonderful presentation.
And once we have the slides, then we can get going. This presentation, about once a year, we provide an update of bilingual education to the Board of Education. And once again, we're happy to provide this information. This presentation is going to be about who we are, where we go to school, and how do we support the population. And as we are ready for the presentation, I might as well begin. The Lansing School District has 1,988 bilingual students, which represents 18% of the school district. From the 1,988, 1,727 are English learners. So these are children that speak 2 languages, but have not reached the proficiency level yet to exit services for English learners. That is 15% of the school district. Our school district has children from 87 countries born outside of the United States. So it is 87 countries, which is a total of 1,167 kids. So the next slide is, I also think that you all have a copy. Hopefully the audience. Hey,
There we go.
There we go.
we moved on. Okay, next, please. Next, please. If you're able to see, these are the top 10 languages that we have in the Lansing School District. The Spanish language continues to be the top language after English, and then Swahili has passed Arabic. So little shift, but one of the new top 10 languages in the district is Pashto, which are children that are coming from the country of Afghanistan. So, next, please. This slide represents the top 10 birth countries outside of the United States. There's the Republic of Congo is the largest number right now, but just for your information, it's almost better to go by the languages than by the countries. For example, if you see a country right there that is Chad, right? All right, so Chad is a place where there's a refugee camp where children from the Central African Republic and Sudan came from. So when you try to figure out how to help communicate with these families, from this specific country, we have languages that are Fulani, Sango, Fula, Sudanese, Arabic, French, and Masalet. The reason I mention that to you is because the expertise level that the district created to communicate with family requires a lot of relationships and connections with the community to truly understand what language each minority group speaks. Okay? Next, please. This school year so far, the 2021-22, we have welcomed 200 new arrivals to the school district, with the largest population being from Afghanistan. And these are numbers that we have not seen in a couple of years. So we're very excited to see these populations, and we're very excited to educate them. Next, please. So where do we serve these children? What schools have the specific services? We have 8 schools right now that provide most of the services for English learners in our school district. Cumberland and Shannon Road continue to be the schools that on the north side that have been educating our kids for a long time. On the south side, Gardner School continues to educate them. Now, this year, we added 2 new schools that provide English language services. School superintendent wants to expand the services to more and more schools. So North Elementary School and Lyons also now welcome English learners in their hallways and classrooms. And of course, all our 3 high schools have the elements, the classrooms, the teachers to educate our English learners. Next. So this is a representation of each of our elementary schools, how they have ESL classrooms, they have a teacher, and they also have a bilingual instructional assistant. All that's Cumberland, Lyons, North, and Shannon Road. We also educate our kids in another school with a lot of services. Next. This is Gardner, by far our largest school with ELs. And they've developed a level of expertise that they have ESL classrooms at each grade level. So, and not only 1, but 2 classrooms in kindergarten, and as you can see, the different grades. These are classrooms that the kids are being taught English, but at the same time are being taught all the other content areas, social studies, math, science, every area that we're supposed to teach, these teachers do it. This is an amazing group of educators too. Next. Our high schools, Eastern. As you can see, also, we have specific classrooms for language, for math, for government, for sciences, and for social studies. Next. Everett, same thing. ESL languages class courses, algebra, biology, physics. Next, please. Sexton High School. Many of our newcomers are going to Sexton now, and we have increased services there where we have language courses, we have US history, math courses, and many different reading and comprehension courses. We're very excited that all three high schools have come to the level of expertise to have teachers that are able to teach sheltered classrooms to English learners. Next. So how we serve them, this is the mission that we have continued to have for many years in the Lansing School District, how we embrace our English learners and provide an environment where they can succeed. Next. This work is not done alone. This work requires our schools, our teachers, our administrators, but also within the bilingual education department, we have a coordinator that does all the intakes of all the newcomers at the Welcome Center. We have a person that works on extended learning opportunities for the bilingual kids and outreach specialist. We have a person that works specifically on trauma. And we have a person that works with the Spanish-speaking families and students. All these people, when we put them together, create a service that, as you go to the next slide, looks kind of crazy, but that's how you educate English learners. You have to wrap them around in every possible way, through parent engagement, through bilingual assistance, cultural competency. All this is done in a way to welcome our kids and make sure they succeed. Next one, please. We continue to provide services for language support. We have cultural brokers that we contract with the community. We also have our great bilingual assistants that speak 15 different languages, and they spend all day at school providing instruction support and cultural gaps between the parents, the staff, and the kids. Next. Interpretation services. We have in the school district 9 telephone lines with a different language where parents can call. We check the line and we're able to connect and try to understand how we can help the parent. In addition, this week, we started a new hotline for emergencies with our partnership with 7C Lingo. And now it does not matter what language the child speaks. If the school principal or administrator needs to get hold of the parent and speak, all they have to do is dial a number, say the name of the language, and say who the kid is, and they will connect you live, either through Zoom or through a phone line with an interpreter that can connect with the families. And we also continue to have translations in the school district through applications from the teachers and staff when they need some translation. Next, please. In addition to that, we have resources, many resources. We have a bilingual resource room at the Welcome Center. We have materials that we provide to the families and to the kids. And we also have what we call SIAP, which is a training that we do with our staff and teachers to ensure that they have the latest strategies to apply in school to teach kids the language while they're teaching content. Next. And we also have digital resources. We have a school website with translated materials and information. We have a Facebook page to connect with the families. And we have a community learning center, which we have the cultural calendar, we have a Google Classroom, and we're developing that into another resource for our families and staff. So this is the brief presentation. We do it once a year, try to provide you with the numbers and who we are, where they're at, and how we educate them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Certainly, if there are questions or comments, I mean, I don't know how we normally do it.
Mrs. Moore?
I have a question. I'm curious, do you ever get feedback from the student experience, what their experience is in our school district? Have we ever gathered feedback?
Yes, and the best way to get the feedback is from what we call the bilingual instructional assistants. These are the people in the schools that speak their languages, and the kids wrap around this person. So every time there's an issue or something, they keep informing us on what is the need in the schools. Plus, we have after-school programming, and the kids talk to us. So we get to talk to the kids, they talk to us, and that's how we communicate with them.
So for our high schoolers, do you ever get like give them a personal survey so they can give us feedback, or do you're just telling me that you're just communicating with them face to face, not really getting anything written?
We don't have we have not done a personal survey with students, and that's one of the reasons why we come here, to get input from you on ideas or questions that you have.
I'm just curious to find out about their experience.
Mm-hmm.
And not, I'm not just assume, and how we can better be more impactful in their experience in the district. I'm just curious about our high schoolers and even our elementary, students. I think that would be great.
Mrs. Willis?
And to support that recommendation for my colleague, the families as well, their experience from the bilingual interpreters. And that actually leads me to my question about the cultural brokers. Can you tell us a little bit more about their role and responsibility?
Yes. The cultural brokers are community members that speak the same language as some of these families, and they are used to connect with the parents and the parents with the schools when there's a need for interpretation, there's a need for an understanding of the culture of how the schools work in the United States, and also if there's something going on at home that the parents share with the cultural brokers to share with the schools. So they were created to break barriers.
I appreciate that. Are those individuals folks that we vet or train, or what's our standard to make sure that these brokers are equipped with the information that they need to actually direct our families in the right direction?
Very good question. So when we hire a cultural broker, we do an introduction to the district, and especially when you are doing translations and within the same language and community, you have to have you got to be careful about the ethicals, what to share, what not to share, because these are community people, and a lot of people don't want their community to know all the things that are going on between the children and the schools and the parents. So we go through that, and then 7C Lingo also provides a training for all our cultural brokers. And so we kind of share cultural brokers within 7C Lingo, the school district, and other nonprofit organizations in the community.
Mr. Lopez?
Yeah, it's interesting that we don't have many from Latin America outside of Mexico. The new arrivals.
No.
And all the fuss about children coming in, and staying at shelters, not shelters, but anyway, it's interesting that if you look at what it is, all of our new arrivals are or very few Latinos, 6 to be exact, from your numbers here from Mexico. And I wonder if where the other kids are from Latin America, Guatemala, and others.
As a school district, we have from Mexico, we got 43 students. From Cuba, we have 18. From Ecuador, we have 4. From Venezuela, we have 3. And from Honduras, we have 11.
But that's total.
That's total. That's not just new arrivals. That's what we have in the school district right now.
Yeah, I was noticing that even new arrivals, because we hear the news about all the kids at the border and some are coming this way. And it's interesting we don't have any of those kids in this area, obviously. That's just a... anyway, it's just an observation that was interesting.
There is an agency in the community that's called Samaritas, and they are the ones that work with undocumented children. And and one of the most difficult parts about is that they have to find foster parents, and finding foster parents can become a barrier of bringing kids into one community.
But while they're in the process, they do get enrolled in schools, do they not? Yeah, but apparently not in Lansing necessarily.
If I could, I know that Samaritas has a group home in the Jackson area, and those kids in that area would be enrolled in the Jackson School District. And there's not a group home run by Samaritas in Lansing.
No, there's one outside of Lansing. I think it's in between Charlotte and Lansing, some in that area. Yes. Mm-hmm. And of course, they call us to see how we can help them educate them. Yes.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation and the dedication of the department. How long can students stay in the program? I know the first year there are excuses for taking national tests or state testing or anything. But after 1 year, they got to take the test and all that. How long average or how long a student is in the program before they go out and go to regular classes all the time?
Yes. To start with, the first year, you're correct. The schools are exempt for all kids that have been less than 10 academic school months in the district to be tested with a state assessment. After that, they have to be assessed. It all depends on the age of the child and on the background of the language. Many of the kids that come to the United States and to Lansing, if they have they have had experience in a formal education, it's much easier for them to acquire a second language. Once you have a basis of literacy in one language, as you know, and many of us that speak a different language or try to, you have to have that strong foundation in one language. According to the research, you have what's called the social language that can take from 1 to 3 years, and then you have the CALP, which is called the cognitive language, that they say it can take between 3 and 6 years to get to a level that you don't need any services. Typically, we are able to, in the Lansing School District, after 2 years, many of our kids are at a level that they can participate in the regular classrooms with the support of bilingual instructional assistants or after-school tutoring to make sure that they can do the work if they fall behind.
Mr. Keck, so I want to make sure that I'm understanding the terms correctly. We have 1,988 bilingual students, and that includes the English learners, correct? So I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think what you said is the English learners are the kids who have come in and don't have a basic literacy in English. Is that correct?
The way we assess and the way the state regulates or mandates the language, we do an assessment that's called WIRA. And there are 6 different levels of English proficiency. Okay, so when you come in, it's entering, and you go all the way to the point that you can exit. Many of our students that are English learners can be at a level that are very close to exiting, and they're still considered English learners. And then we have English learners that don't have the basic knowledge of English. And to exit the services of an English learner and not to be considered an English learner is quite it's not that simple. That assessment is not that simple.
I can imagine. So when the kids when they're no longer classified as an English learner, they would still be considered a bilingual student.
Yes.
Okay.
For example, I have 3 children, right? They were born in this country. They spoke English. They spoke Spanish since they were little, but they also speak English. They are bilingual kids, but they're not English learners. But we have kids that are born in the United States and that spend from 0 until they go to preschool or kindergarten speaking another language. And when they come to our schools, they have a good speech. They speak like any of you, but they don't have the comprehension or the writing skills that are necessary to be a full proficient in the English language.
Okay, that's a really good example. Thank you. And I imagine that probably a lot of our English learners are younger kids. Is that correct?
According to, like, for example, right now, the population that we are welcoming, yes, they're much younger, which is much better because we have more years to educate them. The children that Mr. Lopez was referencing, they come at an older age, and the window becomes smaller. So that's why they need much more support.
So those older kids theoretically could finish their time as a high school student still being an English learner.
Oh, yes.
Does that happen frequently?
Yes. I was one. Yes. Yeah.
All right, and you've done okay. Okay, thank you. Ms. Hodgen, do you have a question? No, Ms. Lilji?
One kind of thought and then just one happy anecdote, if I could share. My first thought is like, wow, this is incredible, comprehensive. It's sophisticated, I think is a word you used, which I think is exactly the right word. And when I was looking at the slide of the wild looking slide, I thought that, I wondered if there were wraparound services like that for some of our kids who speak English just fine, but whose families might be kind of in need of those kinds of supports. I know we do a lot, but that's just one thought. And then the anecdote I wanted to share was many of you know that my husband taught English language learners for 7 years here in the district. He teaches 6th grade. And last year, he was mowing the lawn one Saturday before graduation, a week before graduation. And these 5 seniors showed up at our house and said, "Mr. Lilji, remember us? We were in your 6th grade class at North School, and we want to make sure you come to our graduation." And here are tickets, and as he got to talking with them, they all were doing so incredibly well. They all had been accepted to colleges. They all had their plans for their future. One of them was salutatorian at Everett. I mean, it was very exciting and really just a happy thing. And they were all just first year in the district, first year in the country when they were sixth graders. And he had them before they spoke much English at all. And in those 6 years, look what they were able to accomplish. And I know, they wouldn't have been able to if it wasn't for this sophisticated system. So just wanted to share that anecdote.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you so much, Mr. Keck.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. We appreciate all of your work and all of the names, all of the people who you've identified in this presentation. All of those individuals absolutely have our heartfelt and sincere thanks, because I know that must be an incredibly heavy lift. So thank you, all of the people who are involved in the bilingual education department.
Thank you, Ms. President Lawrence. I also have to share that I've been doing this for a long time and I have a lot of community connections, and the community is very grateful of the Board of Education and the school superintendent and all the people that continue to support the services for this community. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that is well known in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio.
We will move on to our next presentation this evening, which will be our budget amendment. We have Kim Adams coming to join us.
Evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you, John.
All right. Gold star for John McGraw and his crew. All right. All right. Well, Kim, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and get started and just kind of do a brief little introduction. Of course, we're bringing the budget amendment 1 to the board for review and approval tonight. As we do annually, we have traditionally done at least 2 or 3 budget amendments a year. So this is the first one, a little bit later than normal, maybe by a few weeks or a month, but some of it has to do with waiting on some final budgeting and programming for ESSERs, which you'll see how we were able to impact the budget amendment as we previously discussed with that. So if you want to go ahead to the next page. And just a reminder of the context of how we get to this point. And I just wanted a little anecdote that one of the last conversations I had with Samson Akropi before he retired, we think for the final time, was about how, in a way, easy the last couple years of budgets were easier than normal because there are still so many unknowns with COVID and enrollment and all that and funding that in a way it made it easier. But there's always some unpredictable things that we have to deal with every year regardless. So we still have some of those right now. But hopefully going forward, there's more stability, not only in enrollment and revenues that we're able to have a better or more concise idea of the budget going forward. So just again, as a reminder, enrollment projections, we get annual enrollment projections from 2 different firms, Middle Cities and Stanford. And the crew goes through that and kind of projects what we expect enrollment to be. As a reminder, we projected enrollment for what was adopted in the budget this past year, back in June, was 9,722 FTE for students. State aid and foundation allowance, unpredictable in a way because what you'll see is what was in the adopted budget was $100 per pupil increase. And it was quite a bit more for that this year. And staffing totals, and that's more because of enrollment fluctuations. We don't know exactly where staffing is going to land. And then categorical allocations, the Title I's, 2s, and all that, and ESSERs, and everything for the grant-related budgets that go into it and how they can affect the fund balance or not for the most part. But other than ESSERs this year, and we'll see that. Actual fund balance changes as we're finishing out the year, the fiscal year, the prior year. It happened in between April and June from when we start preparing the budget for adoption. And then what gets actually audited in the fund balance that is brought to the board in November for a presentation, and which is obviously occurs after the budget has already been approved. So just as a note, then the budget amendment 1 just because we have to have some kind of a cutoff as far as when we start preparing the budget amendment, that otherwise we're constantly, there's changes going on. But so most of what you'll see tonight is reflective as of the end of November. So go ahead into the next page, and then Kim will give a little overview.
Good evening. As an overview, our approved fiscal year 22 budget projected an ending fund balance of $11,986,000. During the audit, we ended up adding to fund balance by $473,000, bringing our projected revised ending fund balance to $12,460,000. For Budget Amendment 1, we have several positive increases. One is an increase in revenue of $13.8 million. Another is a decrease to our staffing cost of $11.8 million. And then we had decreases to discretionary cost a little over $1 million, bringing our total savings or better than budget to $26.7 million. So with that being said, we have a fund balance increase with this amendment of $24,759,000, which is the $12,460,000 fund balance that we would have had, plus the $26.7 million in changes. So our ending projected fund balance for June 30, 2022 at this point is $39,186,000. And next.
Next slide. So first, we're going to look at some revenue changes and how that came to the $13,879,000 increase. So some of the big chunks is the local revenue, which is primarily property taxes. Usually we start projecting property taxes. We get more information in July and August as far as if there's any increase and decrease in property tax values. So based on from what we originally had budgeted, the majority of that, about 1.9 million of that, was going to be increase in local revenue from property taxes. And that's the operating taxes on the non-homestead millages. There's also some increases in the special education for Medicaid outreach, which there's up and down with that depending on enrollment for special ed and how those revenues flow through the state, county, and at the ISD. And then the largest increase noted here is increase in state funding. So just again, as a reminder, what we had budgeted or had in the adopted budget was the increase of $100 per pupil for this year. And the state agreed to increase across the board for the entire state of $473 per pupil. I'm sorry, for us that'd be $473, but for the state it was up to the $8,700 per pupil. So that was that increase that we had from last year. And then our enrollment for state aid calculation is a blended count of 9,800 FTE per student. So what that is 90% of our fall count, which was, if I remember the numbers right, is around 9,867 students or FTE. And then it's 10% of the spring count, which was around 90. State aid calculation is the 9,800. Whereas last year it was, I think it was a little over 10,000, but that was the super blend that they did before for the 1 year special allowance for, so schools weren't impacted as much of the state aid with the loss of students last year due to COVID and students not going to school or holding out a year, or some of them transferred to online schools for 1 year and came back to us. So we did see an overall increase in students, as was previously reported by both Ms. Benavides and Ms. Toker, I think it was last month or the month before. And then a little bit of increase to food service and direct we can claim for revenue. So again, those totals $13,879,000 increase to revenue this year. Next slide, please.
And our adjusted costs to the budget. We had some increased costs for staff investments. We did not have any staff layoffs. We wanted to ensure academic stability, and we had some contractual obligations. So the increased costs were $5.4 million. We also had staff savings, and these were shifts to ESSER grants of $17,288,000. We had some program investments or increased costs for NWEA, Middle Cities, I Collaborate of $532,000. And then we also had some discretionary budget savings of $1.5 million. So in total, our net savings to the budget is a little over $12,800,000. Next.
So again, just in summary, recapping what Kim had already showed earlier, and then the increases to or decreases in expenditures and increases in revenues. And then pretty much on the last slide, as kind of noted, how we're able to use some of the ESSER grants to help boost up the fund balance. We had kind of discussed that throughout the years, how we could use some of the ESSER funds to do that, to help build up the fund balance, not know in the future, but also some things that now allow us to do is possibly do some improvements for other investments that like we can't use bond or sinking fund dollars for, some other projects like that. So again, very excited to show, probably a fund balance that we haven't seen in probably decades, historical wise at least, but at least for now, looking really good for our fund balance. And I think that is it. So if you have any questions, we'll be glad to take them. Or Ben, if you want to add anything more before questions, just
well, I mean, first of all, thank you, John. No, of course, no. Thank you both to Kim and John. I'll try to put a lot of this into context, but I want the board to ask questions so that you can answer them, and then I'll try to step back and give a little bit of an overview of what this means in context of the school district.
Ms. Lilje?
Just a quick, thank you for the presentation, by the way. What is the 39 million, what is the percent of the total budget? Roughly, I'm just curious.
I didn't look at that.
What is the total budget? Maybe that's the question I should be asking.
The total revised expenditure budget is $219,253,000.
Thank you.
Well,
it's just under 18%.
Okay.
Mrs. Willis?
I don't have a question, more of a comment. Right before the world shut down due to COVID, this board had committed to starting to do reinvestments into the district, given that we have the ability that we've had a pretty stable fund balance over $10 million, which had been the goal of this district, of this board for a while. I know, Ben, Superintendent, you're like, don't get too happy when you look at that fund balance number. There are still long-term expenses that the district is going to have to reabsorb once we're done with our ESSER's funding and all those sort of things. So I get that. I want us to keep a healthy rainy day fund. But I also want us to think deeply about ways that we can make significant reinvestments. One of the positive things, again, if we're able to be successful in our bond in the spring, is again, that's another opportunity for us to alleviate expenditures out of our general fund. And so when we look at the savings that we could potentially see from that and these savings, I think we really need to do some strategic expenditures for things that we can't use out of the sinking fund. So I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you, Mrs. Willis. And I would call upon all of my board colleagues to really start thinking about what that would look like, because I know the final decision does not lie with us, but of course we like to have some say on what we spend our money on too. So I would just encourage everybody on the board to think about, in a perfect world, what would you spend that money on? And members of the community, if you're so inclined, please feel free to reach out to board members and tell us what you think makes sense. Dr. Rodriguez?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. But it's one of the things that bother me is the red numbers, 5,489,000 staff investment. But before we go there, I think we are talking, surprised me that we went from $12 million equity money to 39 million. Where is this money come from? That is a grant? The government is giving us money? How is saving all these millions of dollars? 11 millions in staffing. That is a lot of teachers that were not hired. I mean, I want to know where the money, the moment that we spend all the money that was given to the district by the government, what will be the money that we are going to have of equity? I don't know, say, explain. I want to see the difference between the money that was given to us by the government and the real money that we have as board, as a district. Because how long we are going to have the money for the government, the millions of dollars?
The ESSER funding expires. Some of it expires September, and some of it goes out for another year or 2 years.
And after that, all this money will disappear.
Currently, yes.
And then the money who stay is the money that we are going to have as surplus.
So right now, we're adding to our fund balance, right? We have $36 million fund balance projected for year end, right? That money is in essence our savings, or what we will decide how we're going to spend our money moving forward for next year's budget and future years' budgets. The grant money, the ESSER grants, that's like any other grant. The revenue equals the expenditure. So you have to spend the money in order to receive reimbursement from the state or the feds. Am I answering your question?
That was perfect. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
good.
Perfect. And I go to one of the board members here always said, what happened when the grants are gone? What happened with the programs? What we are going to do if we don't have this several $1 million and we have already the culture of the organization for 2 years doing, and now the money is gone, what is going to happen?
Mr. Lopez?
Excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. Well, the good thing is that we got local revenue increase of 2,027,000, and we got an increase in special education of 331,000, which is not tied to the ESSER funds, right? So in itself, we got more money, not the 39, but local money. And I think that the increase or the decreasing staffing of 11,799 is only temporary, I think, because as we move along, that money is going to be there certainly to put to good use. But as we get out of this pandemic, we're going to start to get more kids in the classrooms. We have to hire more staff, and all that goes to providing education. So I see this is a good thing, but knowing that the pandemic has caused us to save money and spend money. And I think we're saving more money than we're spending, even though we're spending a lot of money to offset the deficits in not only in staffing, but also in PPEs and PPPs and all that stuff that goes along with keeping our children and staff safe. So I wouldn't worry about the fund balance being so high right now, because we're going to need it next year and the year after that.
Right.
So it's good that we have it. And I think what the president said, let's think of how we can use this money in the most effective way and not to do programs that will end when the money goes away. Something that is that stays in the institution and becomes institutionalized as an educational tool. So what that is, I don't know, but I'm glad you mentioned that because that would be my primary purpose for that money. Thank you. Thank you again for the presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Lopez.
Welcome.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, thank you, Kim.
You're
Thank you, John.
So, yeah. So I want to thank Kim and John. I want to thank all their work. We'll talk about this more in depth. We had made a promise to this board that we were going to have a big grants presentation, and that's the next ISS. So that'll be ready to rock and roll. I think the important thing to put this in perspective, because I know sometimes the language that we use here doesn't always translate to what the reality seems, is the way to think about this is that, or at least the way I think about it, you can think about it any way you want, is, we were able to get some extra money because the per pupil went up, which is wonderful. We had thought about it about 84, and it's at 87, so that's terrific. We actually did get more students this year than we had budgeted, which is also wonderful. And I have to thank everybody who literally went door to door and tried to get folks in. And that's really good, and that's the positive. The huge number that you're seeing in terms of that staff saving, just think of it as kind of a one-time payment. The federal government, in their beneficence, and we certainly appreciate it, was able to give money that we were able to kind of offset the cost of a bunch of people that already work here. So sadly, it's not like we're going to get 17 mil every year, but the cool thing is we have 17 mil now, and that means that that's at least in our bank, and that's really, really helpful. And what I appreciate about what Rachel said is we have a strategic planning program that's about to happen. What a great time for us to really think about, let's talk about what we want to spend money for, start creating lists, start listening to the community, start hearing what we need, and then we'll put them in order. And then depending on how much money we actually get and kind of keep, I think we should start doing that. But what Nino is saying, I think, is also very important. That 5.4 million that's in the red, that was and kind of a budgeting thing that the district had agreed to a while ago, saying, hey, look, we're a little overstaffed for the budget that we have. We got to kind of get rid of this. This is 5.5 million, well, 5.489. But because we have all this extra money coming in, we're able to kind of offset it. And, I think, I see the president of the teachers union here who, of course, I give a ton of respect to. Chuck's been great with all of this, is we know that layoffs are the last thing any district wants to do. And so we want to make sure that we understand that there's this $5.5 million, and that is an every year kind of thing, that we want to make sure that we don't have to do any sort of layoffs. And so, I don't think we will, which is great, but just to know that 17 million, it looks great and it is great. So I'm thrilled, but that's a kind of a one-timer, but the staff cost that's in red, that's a continuous. And so we just have to be really thoughtful, work with our partners, not only in labor, but our partners on the board. And though I appreciate that the president says that at the end of the day, the district will make these decisions, I think everybody knows that that's not how we want to do this, right? Is that we can do this together. And I think we can be really thoughtful, because what I've seen in this district, and I'll go and say this more in my own remarks, is that there's a lot of things that we have kind of not dealt with. And this is a kind of a perfect opportunity to fix some of those endemic things. But, we'll go over this more certainly in detail. But I think we're in a really good spot. And Kim and John have done a tremendous job over the last couple of months, really bringing me up to speed to not only what you see here, but the 55 other pages of the data that's behind it. So I'm certainly always happy to talk about that in more detail if anybody needs. But this is great, and we're in a good position. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. For members of our audience this evening, I would just like to remind everyone, if you are interested in making public comment at the end of the meeting, you do need to fill out a blue card. They're on the table at the back of the room. So if you are interested in making a comment, please do fill out that blue card. Moving on this evening, we now have a report from Superintendent Ben.
So, all right. Well, good evening, everyone. There's a lot I want to say today, and I have a guest who's also going to help with some of it. But before we get into COVID, which I know is at the front of mind for so many people right now, and we've been trying really, really hard. I think, honestly, since the beginning of COVID, and I have to give credit to former Superintendent Samson Akropi, this board, everybody who works in the district. COVID is at the front of mind, so I will get to that at the end. But I think you're used to me kind of opening up with either celebrating something or talking about something, and this Monday, as I think we all know, was a day to celebrate the incredible life and incredible work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And, I think that we in America, I hope, think of MLK as a great person, a great American, a great leader. But what's interesting, I find, with heroes is that we kind of ascribe our own feelings towards them. And, in my family, certainly the civil rights movement was very important. There's pictures of my father trying to desegregate a pool when he was a little kid, and, working with families and stuff like that. But I come from, and I think you all know this, I come from a pretty left-wing family, and one that really thinks about not just civil rights, but kind of human rights, but also workers' rights. And what I find so interesting about King and the perception in this country is certainly all of this incredible work that he did in the civil rights movement. But at the end of his life, he really was starting to think about the civil rights movement in a kind of a construct of how do you help society writ large. And he gave a speech actually in 61 to the annual convention of the AFL-CIO, which is the major labor union, and what he's talked about in it really makes me think about what we do here in a school district. And he said, our needs are identical to labor's needs, and he's talked about the civil rights movement: decent wages, fair working conditions, livable housing, old age security, health and welfare measures, conditions in which families can grow, have education for their children, and respect in the community. That's what we do. Right? That's what we do, I think, as a society, but it's also in some respects what we do as a school district. And we'll talk about it in COVID, but I think we all recognize that one of the reasons why all of our staff is so overwhelmed right now is that the needs of the community and the needs of the families are not just, please teach my second grader some math. It is all of the above and more. And when I think about the work that Dr. King did in his life, of course, it surrounded civil rights, but it was about this humanity of the family and the humanity of our people. And I think that how we can go about running a school district, thinking about that is really important. And, every decision that I think we're trying to make now in a pandemic, in these horrible times, is to say that a school district needs to be a place where the entire community can see that we are trying to have not just the education for their children, the respect in the community, conditions in which families can grow. And I think that language is really powerful. And so, I hope that we think about that. I know it was Monday. It was a holiday. We weren't here, right? But it's this week. And I think that it's important for us to think about that, because look, we're going to make mistakes, but if we always keep these kinds of ideas in the forefront, I think we're going to do okay. And, I see more people in the audience today than we normally do. I am thankful for that. I have no idea what you're going to say. You can all call me horrible names. That's totally fine. I don't know if that's true or not, but, just the idea that this place, this room, this district needs to be a place where people come together to think that they're being supported in a full and robust way is really powerful and really important. And so, I thought that was an appropriate thing to talk about today to start my comments. Moving on, what are the kind of the specific things that we're doing, and where are we with that? The busing is getting a little bit better. We're now well below the 400 students on the wait list. We're getting extra buses actually finally starting this month, which is pretty great. So we're hopefully going to see even more students being able to finally get on bus routes. But I will say that we're still going strong with the gas cards at over about 1,750, which seems to be working really well. And it's certainly our plan to continue that for the families that want that throughout. We understand that this is very important to families. We still have people taking CATA. The numbers going down a little bit. What we're finding, certainly in the cold months, is that some of the families would rather just drive their kids to school than put their kid on the CATA bus. But again, I want to thank the relationship with Brad and his team at CATA for allowing us to do this. The other thing, of course, that we're seeing is that the enrollment in our online school is going up again. It's actually pretty much capped. But what does that say to us as a district is that we're very proud that we made a decision to give families choice. I don't know how much you read education news. I'm sorry if you do. It's kind of what I do. But what you realize is that there's a lot of districts out there where parents are clamoring for that choice to be able to go online, not on a day or a year or a week, but like for a year. And a lot of school districts aren't offering that. And they're fighting for lots of reasons. But, I think that if we as a strong school board and school district say and really believe again in the respect for the community, well, that respect has to then lead to, if folks want an option, we should probably give it to them if the parents think it's best for them, barring something that we think is unsafe, like we're going to make you wear a mask. And it's interesting. I was just in meetings with other superintendents, and a lot of districts, don't even wear masks. And, that's a whole other thing. And we can talk about that. And they have to deal with their community. And I appreciate that. But I really do want to thank everybody for how we have been able to handle that. So some other things. I really want to say again how proud I am of the work that Sergio and his team has done. When you all know I'm not from here, when I was looking at districts that I thought would be a good fit, and I was honored to be chosen to be the superintendent here, when I looked at the way they served our English language learner families, it was very, very positive and very, very powerful. And I think that we should be very proud of what they're doing. And Sergio mentioned that we're actually expanding this program. Something that he and I have talked about quite a lot is we tended to, in this district, pick one or two places that we focused on and made those places good. But the problem with that is that we're a large district. We have 26 schools. People live all over. We shouldn't just have one place of excellence. We should have more. And so I'm really looking forward to, and all of you, I hope, should look forward to and hold us accountable to the work that we're going to do at North and Lyons. Expanding this reach, I think, will be really, really powerful. So let's talk about COVID. I have spent more time reading CDC rules and NIH things, and Sue can tell you, even the deep research, it is terrible. You can't sugarcoat it at all. And there is a horrible, horrible divide in all of our consciousness in terms of, do we close down? Do we shut a school district down and say everybody's just got to go home, or do we open up? And that is a decision that is a powerful and quite honestly a scary decision. And it's a decision that none of us take lightly, but it's a decision that we have to make, and it's what we must do, is to always think about the students, to think about the staff, and to do these decisions kind of collectively. So I've been really, really thrilled, trying to not only meet with the executive team, and we have 6 bargaining units, for those of you who don't know, so meeting with the presidents of each of the 6 bargaining units. We might not always agree, but at least we can talk about this stuff. We're actually trying very hard to create a relationship in each school with the union representative and the principal so that they can talk about what COVID is happening in their specific schools rather than just make a district-wide decision. And so what we're seeing is, all of you know, we did close for 1 week. After the holiday break, we closed down. And I was, we held a webinar. 1,400 people came. You had to listen to me for an hour, which I apologize. But, we were pretty clear. We said, look, the reason why we're doing this is that we don't know who was going to be in the building on Monday. And that's dangerous, right? We can't in good conscience say, yeah, 10,000 kids, come on down. I don't know if you're going to have a teacher in your room tomorrow. So, let the fates take you. We can't do that. That's unacceptable. And that would be something that would be really, really a dereliction of duty. So that whole week we spent really trying to change the way we look at attendance practices, ways that we know who's going to show up in the classroom, who's not. We were also testing. We tested about a third of the entire staff on Monday and then again on Thursday. And we were able to really show that our rates were very low, and that we knew that we were going to be able to open up school in a way where there would be enough adults in each room. And, I will say, though, it is still a huge burden. We are able to, today, we had 100% coverage, but that doesn't mean that we had everybody that was supposed to be in schools, right? That means that we have substitutes. That means that, a music teacher is now in a classroom for the day. And if you notice and you want to look at the ranks of my own executive team or our team, I don't know anybody, we're down. We're down people because they either have COVID or because of their family, or they're just out. And so what we've really realized is that we know this is an era of fear. It's an era of anxiety. We are scared. Everybody is feeling it, and we appreciate that. We all are. But we're going to try to be as clear about how we're making decisions as possible, but also bring more people to the table when we're having these discussions. And the people that we rely on the most, the people that I hope we all rely on the most, is our just incredible COVID team. So I have Nurse Sue Wheeler here in the flesh, and we have Nurse Becky Hoff, I think, in a digital way, who's going to talk a lot or somewhat about all of this. And I would defer to her for all of this. But the three things I want people to really, really hold on to is there's two things that really are going to make the difference between keeping a classroom open, keeping a school open, keeping a district open. And those two things are the fill rates in classrooms, meaning is there a teacher in a classroom so that kids can go to school in a kind of safe environment. Now, do I love principals? Absolutely. Do I love secretaries? Absolutely. But, if there's a principal who's out and there's a teacher in charge, that still allows for kids to learn. And so to shut an entire school down because there might be one or two people out, that seems like an unfair burden to the families, as well as everybody who just wants to focus on learning. So that's one. And the second is in-school transmission. This is very important. Are there a lot of people getting sick in this community? Absolutely. Absolutely. But how are they getting sick and where are they getting sick? What we're seeing, and again, Sue can talk about this and Dr. Body can as well when he's back, is amazingly enough, one of, if not the safest place for people to be is school. And the reason for that is that unlike some places in Michigan, you have to wear a mask. We have a vaccine mandate. We try to socially distance. We have, quarantining rules. We have all of these other mitigating strategies. And that's why when we have schools open, we're not seeing the 6 kids that are positive, then meaning the entire class gets positive in 2 days. And that's because of what we have. So I appreciate that every day, the people that work for this district are putting their lives on the line, and we know that. And I think that a lot of you know also that in recognition of that, and also because we're all pitching in, the entire senior staff goes into schools. And, we have people that are being principals, and we have people being secretaries, and we have people being teachers, because that's what it takes in order for us, again, to have the respect in the community and to educate our children, to go back to what Dr. King said. And so we are looking at those two big things, in-school transmission and coverage rates. And then, and then of course, what we're able to do for families who kind of choose because of the fear and anxiety to choose not to come to the school anyway, and being able to support them with online learning and computers and all of that. So, I wanted you to really hold on to those two things. And then the third thing being, I know it might not feel it, but what research has been showing, what our own experience has been showing, is that actually the school is one of the safest places for our children. And that's not just about the COVID stuff, but, I had a principal tell me that, he had a family that thanked him so much for keeping the school open because they didn't have water at their home because it was so cold, the pipes burst. Now, again, the people that work for our district are professionals, and they are there to be teachers, to be paras, to be secretaries. But we also understand that in addition to that, again, the language of Dr. King is that we have to understand that we're there to support the entire family and the whole child. And so it has been really rough. I want to thank everybody for bearing with us as we go to this. We're trying to put in more data so people understand how this decision is being made. We're working with labor. We're trying to do some school-based things. But what we're looking at, again, to the community is that if there's a problem, we're looking, is it in a classroom? That way we could close a classroom down, but not a school. Is there a problem in a school? We could shut the school down, but not the district, right? Because we understand that there are 10,000 families here, probably less because some of you have multiple children, but you have 10,000 students that we serve, and we have to make sure that we're doing best for all of you. And we have to be clear that we also have a responsibility and a care and a duty to our own staff to make sure that they are safe as well. So those are the highfalutin language of a superintendent. I want to now turn it to an actual medical expert, Sue Wheeler, who's actually Dr. Sue Wheeler, but we always think of her as, one of the co-heads of the COVID response team, and of course, Nurse Becky Hoff. So Sue, take it away. And sorry, one last thing, because of course I talk too much, is because the last 6 months with COVID, people were getting kind of used to how things were going. We weren't necessarily giving kind of monthly updates at board meetings. I want everybody to understand that last year there was data on a dashboard that was updated, I think, every month. That data is actually updated every week. The only reason why there was a little bit of a lag is that the data is, from the week before. When you have a 2-week break, we weren't publishing it. So, we're actually not just doing it every month like last year, we're doing it every week. You can always see that numbers. You can always look at what's happening. But again, some of the stuff that we're reporting, like number of positives, that's not as important as, is it an outbreak in the school or is it just in the community? And the other thing that's super important is, do we have the adults and the teachers in the school that we can open up safely? So now, Sue, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really been a great help. And when we talk about the whole team making the decisions, that's what we do. And it has kept things safe. As we look around the community and see numbers, I sit back and think we are about to enter year 3 of the pandemic. And when we think where we started in March of 19, we thought, oh, this will be a week or two, we'll get this under control. So boy, we've all had to adjust. We've all had to look at the world differently. And even though all those numbers are surging, I come tonight with my partner up on the screen there, Becky, to tell you that the commitment from the entire district has also surged. So it is not that COVID is going to overtake our commitment, our efforts. It's really, I'd like to say tireless, but as you look around at all of us, we're tired. Okay, but it's great work dear to our heart, that we want to keep our children in person in school, and we only want to do that if it's safe. So what we have all committed to do is, what are all of the things that will make that happen? And we've your beautiful words about Dr. King makes me think of Maya Angelou, who said, when we know better, we do better. So now as we enter year 3, we know better. The science has emerged. The information is there. We've been able to see trends. Right now we're deep in Omicron. We know from the science this will pass. Okay, we have to stay really vigilant for a few weeks, but we will get to the other side of this. And then the predictions are we may be coming into a better place. So we think, okay, the changes are frustrating. There's new guidance. It feels like every day. We don't, what are we supposed to do? So our commitment has been to be clear, transparent, to put our information on our website, to communicate to families in every way we know how, and to hold firm with sometimes a little more conservative guidance with our district to keep our people safe, not just our children, but our staff as well, so we can all be in school together. So what have we learned? Well, we've learned the number one tool we have is vaccination. We were leaders in mandating that staff and adults in our district be vaccinated. We then moved out to how can we get our families, our children, our community vaccinated? The Office of School Culture in the spring partnered with the Ingham County Health Department to bring vaccination clinics to our schools. So any barrier our families might have about where do I get a vaccine, not only tell me about the efficacy of it, tell me if it's safe, but then how do I get it? That was removed. We brought them to the schools. Then we went through the summer and the fall. Again, that partnership continued. The vaccination clinics were in our schools. We ended up vaccinating more than 800 of our students and families through our on-site vaccination clinics. The Ingham County Health Department, one of our wonderful community partners, also brought mobile vaccinations to the Eastern High School Open House, to the Willow Elementary Open House, came and interacted with our families and encouraged vaccination. So this partnership will continue, and in this second semester, we're going to do another round of the vaccination clinics and hopefully get people not only vaccinated, but boosted. So we'll do both of those things. What else good have we done? What's our commitment? Well, we have brought on medical assistants. So we have a medical assistant in every single school. That has just been tremendous. Okay, it has allowed us to not only monitor and manage a test to stay program, so we can get kids and staff back to school quicker after they've had an exposure to a positive person, but it's also helped with contact tracing, with supportive services for families, referring people for resources in the community, people that don't have healthcare providers. We've also had one medical assistant who has been specifically connected and assigned to the COVID coordination team. So all of those nights and weekends, we wish COVID would say we're only Monday through Friday, but it doesn't. So we've had the tremendous help there as well. We have a couple of other things that my partner there, Becky, would, if this technology will work here. Can you hear us and talk?
I can hear you.
Yes.
So in addition to our medical assistants, we've been fortunate to partner with the CDC Foundation, who've provided 2 CDC School Liaisons to the district. So we have Kirsten Fox and Kelly Line. They've joined us in the past few months, and they're working daily to help support us with our COVID management through the district. So we're very excited to have them join us. We continue, I know in the past we talked about our COVID testing program. That really has become quite robust now. We have recognized the importance of testing and monitoring and how it helps us prevent further transmission and school outbreaks. We've worked very, very hard with different sources to procure tests that we're using throughout the schools. We're using them in the athletic department, testing our students before events and weekly random testing of our athletes. We are testing, as we'd spoken before, we're testing our staff with 2 day tests, 2 days of testing the week after the winter break, where we actually tested about 800 staff over the 2 days. Which was very successful. We discovered that our positivity rate was less than 5%, which we were very happy with. And then we have slowly introduced, and now we are fully up to speed with our Test to Stay program, which is for both staff and students, where we offer rapid tests for anyone who has had a close contact or an exposure to someone that has COVID. So we bring them back 3 to 5 days after exposure, or longer if it's been a household exposure. We'll test them, and if they're negative, they stay in school all day. And this has really been very successful in keeping our staff and our children in schools for more days. They're not having to quarantine as long as they were, so we're finding this very, very successful. We, as I said, have found many different sources for our tests. We struggled for a couple of days, wondering whether we were going to have enough to cover us, but we had a delivery of 5,000 tests this week. We have another 4,000 coming next week, so we feel like we're in a really good place there. Our mitigation strategies, which we've talked about before, continue. Masking, I know we have learned, the science is really showing us that masking is a very, very strong strategy. Recent information from the CDC is telling us that the best kind of masks to use are N95s or KN95s if possible. So we actually have ordered a large number of those to distribute. Some of them have already gone out to the staff members in the most high-risk areas, such as with our special ed students and over at Beekman. So we're providing staff with those when we can. We have more of them coming. We continue and will continue to make sure that we encourage social distancing at all times. We really have focused on our cohorts within the classrooms, meaning that we try diligently to keep small groups of students together, both in the classroom and when they go to other places, such as the lunchroom or specials, so that if and when there is a positive case, they are only exposing themselves to a fewer number of students. So we have fewer students to send home and quarantine. So again, we're keeping more children in the classroom as much as we can. Let me see. Hand washing, of course, continues. Our environmental support, such as the air filtration and the ventilation systems that we purchased, are in all of the classrooms and are being used daily. And let me see what else we have. Hand washing, ventilation, I think I've covered all of those. Okay. We continue to monitor all the updates from the CDC, the health department, the local health department, the MDHHS, and the Michigan Department of Education. We're really watching for science-based, real-time recommendations so that we can come together and discuss our district protocols and policies and make sure that they are up to date with whatever's currently going on out in the state and the local community. So we're hopeful that we can continue to respond to the current COVID surge and keep the staff and students as safe as possible every day. And we're grateful for the cooperative efforts of the entire district community. And that includes Sodexo and our friends at Dean Transportation, of course, the teaching staff and support staff, our administration, and all of our community partners that help us keep the children and staff and also our families safe every day. Thank you.
Thank you to you both. Sue, is there anything more you want to say? So I cannot tell you how hard this COVID team works. An expectation of a superintendent is that I should work 24/7, or at least that's my own craziness. The fact that the COVID team is calling me at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, midnight, texting, doing contact tracing. There will never be enough praise given to the nurses and the COVID team for what they've done. They had made mention that we've been a little conservative, and what we have seen is that the actions we have taken by still doing some quarantining when other districts don't is that our in-school transmission is low. What we have seen is by making sure that we're having masks, we have lower in-school transmission than other places. And I know that this is a burden on families when you say, wait, my kid was sitting next to this kid, but my kid's fine. Can't they just stay? And what we're finding, especially with Omicron, is that just, a 2-day window, a 3-day window, if we just wait and then test you, we can bring you back super safely and really make sure that we can continue to have school open. So I know this has been a burden on families. Certainly, we have been more conservative, but that's because we want to put safety of the staff and the students really at the forefront, but still being able to stay open. So I hope that this was helpful. Certainly, we're going to have questions, I'm sure. As I was saying earlier, because things were kind of at a stasis level in the first couple of months, we weren't having these monthly updates. If you want this, I think it's very beneficial, not just for the board, but for those watching at home and the community. And, it's always a pleasure to hear Becky and Sue talk about this stuff. But I know that sometimes things happen behind the scenes, and I'm often reminded of if a tree falls in the woods and nobody's around, does it make a sound? But just please know that the trees are falling and they're making huge sounds, and that's the work that is being done by the COVID team, by the teachers in the room every day, by the assistants in the room every day, all of the staff. It's a community effort, and I can't thank Becky and Sue enough, as well as everybody else. So with that, I'm sure you have questions, and hopefully.
Mrs. Willis.
I just want to say thank you to the superintendent and your team for your diligence. I know one of the things that's difficult about COVID, and especially this variant, is that it can be very unassuming. It's not hitting people as hard as the OG strain of COVID. I guess that's what the original one's called. I'm not sure. And I know for a fact that the contact tracing efforts in this district have caught staff and students by contact tracing them having accessibility to testing. Turns out they were positive. We were able to get them isolated, and that reduced transmission. So those efforts, it may seem like it's overkill, but for the number of staff and students that I know that we've been able to catch and get out of the building to reduce transmission makes it worth it. So I just want to make a note of recognition for that. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Madam President. Get confused. First of all, thank you for the report. and thank you for all your work. I personally had a bout of COVID, and fortunately, I'm tested negative now. But it was staying home, staying away from people, right here, and then so it's negativo.
I know.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much
Yes, you're
for that. I had a question, Mr. Superintendent. In terms of our online offering, are we getting mostly Lansing students, or do we get students from the area as well?
The online school?
Yes.
Most of the students are Lansing, but we actually have quite a significant number. I think it might be 100. I'll get you exact numbers of families from other districts. And I want to thank some of our surrounding superintendents. We have had some really wonderful collaboration with East Lansing and Okemos and Holt and some other places. So yeah, we are providing a great service for not just Lansing students, but for the greater Lansing community. And I think the number's around maybe 80 to 100, but I'll check.
Well, I guess my point was that we are providing that service.
We are, absolutely.
And we're obviously helping our students, but we're also having that service for the Lansing community, the greater Lansing community. So
Absolutely.
I wanted people to understand that and that there's that availability. Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Mr. Superintendent, and the team and everybody else. But the more important part is that you created a culture around the COVID-19 in the school that is going out to the community. And many families are following what the kids are learning in the school, and they go home and they talk with their parents. That what you are doing in the school is all over in that community, because I heard some parents, I like what Lansing School District is doing. That is the community supporting and following the leadership the Lansing School District is taking in that. Congratulations. And that is the culture that we have to continue working from the school, go to the families and the community as a whole, and keep this community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Hodgen?
I wanted to thank you for your explanations. They're needed, and everybody's probably waiting for everything that you are thinking. So my heart just goes out to you, because you guys have to be, like the superintendent said, very busy people. So thank you very much. I also would like to share with the audience that I am very happy to see people in the audience for many, many years. This used to be the parents, the teachers, everybody's place every Thursday. Every Thursday. And for some reason, for 6 years, it stopped. But now lately, thank God, we are seeing more and more of you come. Please join us, come. Your input is important, especially at these COVID times, as parents, as teachers, as residents of Lansing. So please join us every Thursday. And that's what I wanted to share with you, and ask you to come back to the Lansing School District. We're waiting for you. Thank you.
Good. I, for one, feel much better after hearing Sue say that the science suggests that possibly after this breakout, things might get a little bit better. She said that, and I was like, oh, okay, she's a doctor.
Maybe we can all just hang on. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Moving on to routine matters, we have committee reports. Facilities Committee, Mr. Lopez. Facilities. We haven't met. We'll meet on Monday.
it goes. Okay. We won't have I do want to give you an update, a quick update of the active construction sites that are still going on, or at least 2 weeks ago. Things might have changed. But at Sexton, the boiler replacement work is finishing up, and it should be finished by now. So that was really the last thing that they were doing at Sexton. So and so they're installed and operational, the boilers. At Everett, work was essentially completed 2 weeks ago, and I think it's already, they've gotten the occupancy approval, and that has been received, so everything's going according to plan. Wexford, additional scope is being added to convert the eastern open classroom area into enclosed classrooms for the students at the Montessori program. And then the north, most work is complete for except for punch list items, and that is scope being planned for next summer. I will bring more information on north at the next meeting, but I just wanted to let you know that those projects which were active 2 weeks ago probably still are because of the punch list work, but essentially they're coming to a to finish in terms of those projects which were pretty extensive. And like I said, I won't have a meeting until next week with the Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Mr.
That's my
Lopez.
report.
Any questions for Mr. Lopez? I will be sending out committee assignments to board members tomorrow, but spoiler alert, the Facilities Committee for this year will be Mr. Lopez, myself, and Ms. Liljie. Woo-hoo, and we have a meeting on Monday.
I'm going to be outvoted now, huh?
That's right. Okay, moving on to Promise Committee. Back to Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. We had our meeting today, and I just want to give you some high points, highlights. And Dr. Rodriguez will probably have some additional ones, but I just want to let you know that these are the plans for this coming year, things that are exciting. In terms of strategic communications, the one thing that's going to happen is the State of the Promise report. That'll be online, and will also be have a Promise video on it. That video will unveil in February, and both things will be in February. There's a Promise podcast entitled Inherent Worth, where Promise scholars will talk about themselves and the worth of the Promise to them, and how they feel in terms of the whole issue of the Promise and their success and so on and so forth. Those podcasts will be also once a week starting in February. Public service announcements will roll out in March for Promise, and I think that if I heard correctly, this will be on a weekly basis, and the Promise service announcements will not only entail the Promise but other things in the community. The scholar spotlights, again, those things are going to happen this coming year, and that they're going to. This is where they're gonna, as it says, shine a light on some of our current and alumni Promise scholars. So we'll be bringing folks that have graduated already and are doing great things to talk about what they did and shine a spotlight on them. If you recall, Mr. James C. Curry II, he was an East Everett scholar who gave tremendous speeches in the previous dinners. Well, he's the author of a children's book, and so the Promise is working with him, and this book will be distributed through Lansing Reed's partnership with RIF. So among other things, we have students who have graduated and now are authors and so on and so forth. And I believe as a Promise dinner, as reimagined, probably will be outdoor event on May 19, 2022. We're working on the dinner being at the what is it now? Jackson Fieldhouse, Jackson Stadium, Jackson National Stadium, Lugnut Stadium for Quickie. Couple of other things that are interesting is that the Promise Business Council, a council will be developed of business leaders in the community to see how they, as business leaders, can add and bring some more services and resources to the Promise from a business point of view, also how to help our Promise scholars. In development is also a Promise Community Council, bringing in folks who may or may not be affiliated with the Promise and our schools, but our community groups out in the community to come and share their thoughts and wisdom with the Promise, and in that specific lens. The other one is a student council, which will bring Promise scholars, future and previous and current scholars, to deal with issues maybe that they feel are important to scholars, so on and so forth. I mean, these are all in the planning stages, so there's a work in progress. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that there will be a dinner, a senior dinner, somewhere in here. Here we go. February the 16th, there'll be a senior dinner, and this is really not part of Promise, but works a lot with Promise, and this is Terry Bernetto, who brings together the seniors. And they have a dinner. It's going to be virtual again, and they talk about everything, including the Promise and scholarships and things that are important to seniors. So they're asking for volunteers to deliver dinners to our seniors. So if you're available at 4:45 for delivery time, let Terry know or let me know, and I can forward the names, so that this is because it's always a dinner, right? But because it's virtual, we need to take the dinner to them so they can have dinner and the program. And this again, thank you to Terry Bernetto, who's in charge of that. And so that is a quick update on the Promise, Madam President. And I don't know if Dr. Rodriguez may have additional comments.
I think that you covered really very, very well. The other two things, maybe we had two new members in the board right now that we accepting them today. The second is the dinner for the seniors. Last year were 55 or 54 deliveries. Then they did. The other is now they are going to start paying not only the tuition for some of the students, but also the books and the materials that they are going to need to be in college and Michigan State and Olivet. And they are going to extend that to the trade schools. They are going to be working on that. And finally, we are going to have the evaluation of the person who ran the Promise and Foundation. We have the evaluation every year. And the evaluation is going to be in the next 2 weeks. And it's going to be done by the officers, and I represent the board in that evaluation, then I will do my work. Thank you very much, Ms. President.
Do you know who the two new members are? Do you remember their names, the two new members?
I'm sorry?
The two new members to the board?
One is Jennifer from PNC,
Uh-huh.
and the other one is Michelle.
Jen-
But I don't know who Michelle represents.
Michelle Messi from TechSmith.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Sturdy from PNC.
Great.
Those are the two new
You-
board members that were approved and accepted today.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions Okay, moving on to Equity Committee, Mrs. Willis.
Thank you, Madam President. The Equity Committee met last on January 11th. During that meeting, we discussed the district discipline data. I might have mentioned it at the last meeting. I did share that data with the board. Thank you to Ms. Moore for pointing out that I forgot the attachment on the original email, but hopefully you all have received that. Our next meeting is Tuesday, the 25th. We did add another meeting to the meeting series because we've gotten into very robust conversations during the meeting that we haven't gotten all the way through some of the work, which is, it's a good problem to have. So we did add an additional meeting in February, but once we are done in February, we will be on to the next step. I have scheduled a meeting, thanks to the help of Dr. Diaz, with our internal team for Monday so that we can start cobbling out what is the work going to look like once we're done with our sessions with West End. That concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Willis? Okay, moving on to the Policy Committee, which is Dr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. The policy committee didn't meet, but we will meet in the next few days. And one of the things will be on the agenda is the Board Education new act that we had to study because the virtual meetings but many of the things that are in that particular regulation or legislation we are already doing in this group. It's only one or two things we had to adapt and be aware that the new legislation don't let us to do few things that we were doing before December 31st. I want to thank the superintendent for sending this note from the person from the Michigan Associated School Board. There is the one who did the presentation also and ISOA. And we followed that direction in the last meeting. I want Mrs. Moore to know that was not you because you were not here. We didn't want to hear your voice. It's because the legislator didn't let us to do it. Okay? Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Any questions for Doc? Okay, moving on to our Ad Hoc Committee on Anti-Violence. Mrs. Moore, welcome back.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back. I would like to report that Trustee Littlegy and I are finalizing the summary to submit to the board, so we should have that at our next board meeting. We look forward to, let me not speak too much. I don't want to overdo it, but yeah, we'll have our summary for the board and for the community at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you so much.
And let me just share this. Trustee Littlegy, would you like to share anything about our last meeting? I wasn't in attendance, but you may have something to share. I don't know if.
Nothing further
Okay.
to share. Yeah,
Okay.
we are meeting with the superintendent in the coming week, so that'll be exciting.
Great.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And our Ad Hoc Committee on Strategic Plan is Dr. Burrows, who is not with us tonight. I know that Dr. Burrows and John Lang are working with MSU on finalizing some contract language in order to engage MSU to help us with our strategic plan process.
Madam President,
Doc,
do you know where, because we were asking for a presentation?
we need to have the contract finalized first.
Okay, perfect. But still will have.
Yep, thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda for this evening. Our consent agenda includes the approval of the January 6th annual organizational and regular meeting minutes and the January 13th ISS meeting minutes and the receipt and approval of the treasurer's report for December. May I have a motion? Ms. Hodgen. It's been moved by Ms. Hodgen, supported by Ms. Lilgy. Any discussion? Mrs. Willis.
Madam President, would you like for me to give the treasurer's report?
I would love it.
All right. The December 2021 treasurer's report is detailed in your attachment. The beginning cash and investment balance. Okay, also I wanted to say this, John and Kim are gone, so I don't have to give exact numbers because their eyes won't twitch. So the beginning cash and investment balance was $22,944,000. Revenue totaled $12,715,000 and some change. And expenses equaled $15 million and a little over $15 million. We had our net inter-fund transfer of $506,000, and the monthly transfer to the general fund from the 2016 and 2019 bond expenses was $947,188. The ending general cash and investment balance as of December 31st, 2021 was $21,892,372. The general fund cash and investments balance at that time was a little over $1 million. The general cash fund investments balance is approximately $1 million lower as compared to this time a year ago. Donations received during the month of December totaled $1,531. We received donations from the following: $750 from Dean Transportation to the Holiday Wish for Kids, $300 from Marley and Scott Williams, and that was to the Kindon second grade. The United Way gave donations $360 for RIF, $12.70 to Ebersol, $40 to Eastern, and another $66 in miscellaneous donations. So thank you very much to all of our donors for the month of December. And Madam President, that concludes the December 2021 Treasurer's Report.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. Willis or questions on the rest of the consent agenda? Okay, will all those in favor of adoption of the consent agenda please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to action items for this evening. We have the budget amendment number 1. May I have a motion? Dr. Rodriguez.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Education approve budget amendment number 1 as presented.
It's been moved by Dr. Rodriguez, supported by Ms. Hodgen. Any discussion?
Second.
We already did that.
Noted.
Will all those in favor of adoption of the budget amendment as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. And moving on to public comment on non-agenda items. I would first like to invite to the podium Walter Marshall Jr. Come on up. Mr. Marshall, I know you've submitted 2 cards, unfortunately. Okay. Oh, I see. There's Walter Marshall and there's Walter Marshall Jr. Gotcha. Okay. You each have 3 minutes. There's going to be a timer right in front of you. The board typically does not respond to public comment. Go ahead when you're ready.
Restart.
We can start over.
New to the district. This is our first year. We have 3 children. My wife is a former educator. And, starting off, it was kind of rough. My son, he was coming home saying he was being bullied. Every day was something different. We worked with the leadership there at the school, and we discovered that it was, the lunch aides and lunch and recess was when most of the challenges, were taking place. So I've been volunteering. My wife and I, we volunteer pretty much every week. Just to try to help out, and we see that there's a need in the school there. So I think that this is an opportunity for the board and just the district to try to help the principals where they can bring in more volunteers because the teachers need that. Other than that, I mean, we haven't had any issues of the bullying. It's been resolved, but one of our concerns is the report that just really came out with Stanford. Our son, he's regressed. This is the first year, and we've noticed that his reading and writing, a lot of his his studies is declined. We want to support our school. We want to be there and help. And I just think that there's an opportunity, for more community groups to come in and help so the teachers can focus on teaching and we can hold them accountable. Great job with bringing in big brothers and big sisters, but I think there's opportunity to, tap into more, government agencies. Like, we have the largest employer right here with the state. Every state employee has 8 hours of community service. I've been giving up my lunch hour once a week to go. I think you can, create those pipelines so the principals can have the support to, help the teachers so they're not always disciplining students, but, just being able to educate the kids. So like GM, insurance companies, we have a lot of employers here and they get tax breaks and everything. So, we should ask them to help the future generations to come up, Other than that, just wanting to, just give you an opportunity to, help, educate our kids and raise the test score. So thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll hear public comment from Walter Marshall Jr. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, you can come sit right at this table. Great idea.
You have to give a presentation.
Hope you brought your PowerPoint.
So my name is Walter Marshall Jr. and I've been bullied in school sometimes, and I think that there should be more lunch teachers because sometimes the 6th graders don't know how to eat their lunch and they just think it's just their free time. So that makes me worried because if they do a bad cause, it can affect somebody else. So I just hope that there will be more lunch teachers to help out because I just feel kind of unsafe in school sometimes.
Thank you.
And that's my speech.
Thank you very much. Good job.
And that's all I got to say.
What school do you go to?
I go to Pat McGill.
Okay, thank you.
That's a large school.
I would like to welcome back our friend, Pastor Coy Boyer. Pastor Boyer, you know the drill.
I do. Thank you. How's everybody doing tonight? Okay. All right. I guess I get the same thing on Sunday sometimes. Not much of a response. Today I just wanted to stand before you and just share something. My wife came to me a couple of days ago and has come to me for the last couple of weeks and has just let me know that she is tired. Well, obviously, of course, she's a teacher in a Lansing school district. She loves her job, loves her students. There are moments where she's feeling overworked, underappreciated, and very taxed. As I've been praying and figuring, trying to think about what God would have me to do, yesterday I was driving down past Sexton as I stopped there for a few moments to do some things in preparation for track season. As I was leaving, I passed by a bus stop right there in front of the school, and I saw this student, this young man, curled up kind of in a ball, trying to keep warm, waiting on the bus. Voice said to me, turn around and go see about that young person. I turned around, somewhat reluctantly, but trying to be obedient to this voice in my head, and went back and asked the student if they were waiting for the bus. They said yes, they had missed it. So when is the bus coming? He said, I don't know, I've been out here for an hour. This moment, I asked them, did they need a ride? I was surprised by two things. Number one, how quickly the student ran to the car to get in it, and they had no idea who I was. Number two, what I thought was a young man was actually a young lady. Oh. As I turned the heat up and prepared to take them to their home, I asked where their coat was at and their gloves. She expressed to me that while she had on 3 sweaters, coat and glove was not something that she could afford or her family could afford. I took her I asked her, did she want something to eat? She said, yeah, where would you like to go? McDonald's, of course. That's a place of choice for teenagers. Took her to McDonald's. Of course, it was a slow McDonald's on MLK, and so it took a while, which allowed her to be warmer for a little while longer. For the next 10 to 15 minutes, she just shared a little bit about her life, her story, gave me a little bit about who she was. So I dropped her off at the trailer park in which she lived in. I let her know that, it was good to get a chance to talk to her and to take her home. Before she got out the car with her bag of McDonald's with 2 different meals that she had ordered, she reached over and she hugged me. She held on tight. And in that moment, I knew that while I could not take care of this child like she was my own, I could not take her home, I could not solve all of her problems. In this moment, what I had did mattered. So tonight, I want to share with all of the educators, those even in administration, but especially the teachers who may be watching, we need you because moments matter. Tomorrow, when you smile at a child, or when you encourage a student on the test, or when you let a child know that they can do their best, while to you it may just seem like a small moment, it's moments like that that matter and make a difference. I know my time is up, but graciously allow me to finish this. Before she got out the car, I let her know that that day the Lord must have had her on his mind, because he provided a ram in the bush, in me. Tomorrow he would provide another ram in the bush, probably not me, but someone else. I need teachers to know, I need you to know. Tomorrow, you are that ram. So I encourage you to, in spite of the fact that you are tired and at times are struggling, we appreciate you, we thank you, and our children, they need you. Why? Because those small moments, they matter. Thank you.
I see.
Thank you very much, Pastor Boyer. Thank you to all of our public comment participants this evening. Your words mean a lot to all of us sitting up here tonight. Thank you. Report from Secretary and announcements, Doctor.
Thank you, Madam President. Friday, January 21st, I think that's tomorrow, right? It's end of the first semester. The first semester is over and we start second semester next Monday. It's only half-day school for all grades. It's a planning and record day. Wednesday, January 26, pick up Parents Community Advisory Council meeting. I can imagine it's going to be virtual. It's in Post-Hoc and from 6 to 8. Saturday, January 29, 2022, The Story of a Legacy, Everett Dance documentary premiere. Celebrate almost 50 years of dance and the completion of the 2016 bond work with us. January 29th, the door open at 5:00 p.m. and then the event starts at 6 o'clock. You want to reserve your tickets today, go to the Lansing School District. Definitely tickets are very limited due to the COVID-19. Wednesday, February 2nd, No School Professional Development Day. Thursday, February 3rd, regular board meeting, 6 p.m. On Thursday, February 10, 2022, information study session, 6 p.m. in George Brown Ballroom. And that is all I have today, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rodriguez. Comments from board members, Ms. Lilji?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say how excited I am about the Everett Dance documentary premiere coming up. I'm very excited about that. That wasn't really what I wanted to say. I just can't contain my excitement. So what I did want to say is I just want to invite all the community members to please consider coming to the PCAC meeting on Wednesday. There's free childcare, free dinner, and it's another chance to have maybe more of a conversation, a dialogue with the leadership of the school district. Ms. Black, are you still here? Do you know off the top of your head what the riveting topic will be at PCAC?
Yes,
Special education.
Oh, okay. So there will be, thank you. So there will be a presentation every month. There's a presentation about a different topic. This month will be about special education, but then there's a lot of time that you can have to dialogue with the leadership of the school district. So unlike public comment where we don't really respond, there we can actually have a conversation and have some more meaningful dialogue. So please invite your friends and family and tell everyone you know that PCAC will be happening Wednesday. This time it will be at Post Oak. We've been holding them at a different building every month. So this month at Post Oak. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lilji. Any other comments? Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Madam President. You know, as we heard the presentation from our nurses in terms of COVID and so on and so forth, I would like to, if you don't mind, on behalf of the board, express our condolences to two families who lost two young men to COVID. That was Mr. Luis Lino Jr., age 32, and Mr. Robert Alvarez Jr., age 43. Young men with young families. They succumbed to COVID, and I want to again express our most sincere condolences to the families of these folks who were alumni from our Lansing School District as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Other comments from board members this evening? Okay, with no further business before the board at 8:07, we are adjourned.
Oh, Cordelia.